December 5, 1945, Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale, Florida. World War II had ended just months earlier. The war was over, but the U.S. Navy continued training pilots to maintain readiness. That afternoon, Flight 19 was scheduled for a navigation and bombing exercise, a routine mission known as Navigation Problem Number 1. The flight consisted of 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers, rugged aircraft designed for carrier operations. Each carried fuel for about 5 hours of flight. Their task was simple: fly east from Florida for 120 miles, turn north for 73 miles, then return southwest to base. A simple triangle over the Atlantic. Nothing unusual. The flight was led by Lieutenant Charles Carroll Taylor, an experienced naval aviator and World War II veteran. 4 student pilots followed under his command. At 2:10 p.m., Flight 19 took off into clear skies. But no one could have imagined that within 3 hours they would be lost and gone forever. For the first hour, everything went according to plan. Radio transmissions were normal, the weather was clear. Then, around 3:40 p.m., something changed. Flight 19's radio operator, Captain Edward Powers, contacted Fort Lauderdale. His voice was calm but uncertain. "This is FT-28. Both my compasses are out. I'm over land, but it's broken. I'm not sure where we are." Lieutenant Taylor's voice came over the radio again, confused, disoriented. He believed they were over the Florida Keys, far to the southwest. But they weren't. They were actually hundreds of miles to the east, somewhere over the open Atlantic Ocean. Taylor's navigational instruments had failed, and his internal compass, his sense of direction, was betraying him. He ordered his men to turn northeast, deeper into the Atlantic, but it was the wrong direction. As time passed, the radio transmissions grew increasingly frantic. "We can't tell where we are. Everything looks wrong. Even the ocean looks strange." Ground control tried desperately to reach them, but communication was breaking down. Static, interference, and fading signals made coordination almost impossible. At one point, the control tower suggested Taylor's group switch to emergency frequencies, but Taylor either didn't hear or refused, fearing he might lose contact altogether. By 4 p.m., the sun was lowering. The weather began to change, clouds forming, winds picking up. "We're not sure where the mainland is," one pilot radioed. "Everything is wrong, strange. We can't make out any landmarks." Taylor's uncertainty grew. He thought the sun was setting in the wrong place. He ordered the flight to continue heading northeast. But this decision took them even farther from land and closer to disaster. As daylight faded, the situation worsened. Fuel was running low. Compasses spun aimlessly. At 5 p.m., another transmission crackled through. "We can't hold altitude much longer. We'll have to ditch unless we get landfall. When the first plane drops below 10 gallons, we all go down together." It was a grim acknowledgement. They knew the end was near. By 6:20 p.m., the final transmission came through faintly. "All planes close up tight. We'll have to ditch in the ocean if we don't spot land. When the first plane drops, we all drop together." Then, silence. No more radio calls, no radar blips, no distress beacons. Flight 19 had vanished. Within minutes, the Navy launched one of the largest air-sea rescue operations in history. 2 PBM Mariner rescue planes were dispatched from Florida to search for the missing bombers. But within just 20 minutes, one of the rescue planes also disappeared. Witnesses aboard a nearby tanker saw a bright flash in the distance, an explosion. The Mariner had likely exploded mid-air, killing all 13 crewmen on board. Now, 6 aircraft and 27 men were missing. For 5 days, over 300 aircraft and 21 ships scoured the Atlantic. They covered 250,000 square miles of ocean, from the Florida coast to the Bahamas and beyond. But they found nothing. No wreckage, no oil slicks, no life rafts, nothing at all. The Navy was baffled. In early 1946, the Navy concluded its investigation. Their report read, "Cause of the disappearance unknown." They suggested Lieutenant Taylor had become disoriented, believing he was over the Gulf of Mexico instead of the Atlantic. By heading northeast instead of west, he led his men farther out to sea until they ran out of fuel and ditched in rough waters. The aircraft would have sunk quickly, their heavy engines dragging them to the bottom within seconds. It was a tragedy of human error, compounded by bad luck and failing instruments. But even that explanation didn't sit well with everyone. How could 5 planes disappear without leaving a trace? Why did Taylor's compasses fail? And what about the rescue plane? Was that mere coincidence? The legend of the Bermuda Triangle had just begun. In the years that followed, the story of Flight 19 grew beyond simple tragedy. Writers, journalists, and conspiracy theorists seized upon the mystery. In 1964, author Vincent Gaddis published an article in Argosy magazine titled "The Deadly Bermuda Triangle." He described the region as a graveyard of ships and planes, where compasses spun wildly and time itself seemed to distort. Flight 19 was his centerpiece, the event that embodied the triangle's strange power. Soon after, Charles Berlitz's best-selling book, The Bermuda Triangle in 1974, turned the story into legend. He suggested supernatural forces, aliens, time warps, even energy vortices beneath the ocean. The public was hooked. The story of Flight 19 became synonymous with the unknown. But was it really a mystery, or simply misunderstood history? In the decades since, aviation experts and historians have re-examined the evidence. Their conclusions are far more down-to-earth, but no less fascinating. For one, navigation over the open sea in 1945 was extremely difficult. The TBM Avengers relied on magnetic compasses, easily disrupted by metal, weather, or human error. Radio signals could fade quickly over water, and Lieutenant Taylor's own history raised questions. He had gotten lost on previous flights. On the morning of December 5th, he had reportedly arrived at base late and seemed unsettled. He even requested to be replaced on Flight 19, but there was no substitute available. When his compasses failed, Taylor's instincts betrayed him. He mistook the Bahamas for the Florida Keys, reversing his mental map. Instead of turning west toward land, he turned east, deeper into the Atlantic. As night fell, the ocean became a featureless void. Without horizon or stars, disorientation set in. By the time they realized their mistake, it was too late. Fuel was nearly gone. They likely ditched into rough seas somewhere north of the Bahamas. Within seconds, the heavy bombers would have sunk beneath the waves, leaving little to no debris. But what about the Bermuda Triangle? Does it really exist? The area described as the Bermuda Triangle stretches from Miami to Bermuda to Puerto Rico, forming a vast triangle over the Atlantic Ocean. Over the years, dozens of ships and planes have supposedly vanished there under mysterious circumstances. When researchers examined the data, they found something surprising. The rate of disappearances in the triangle is no higher than anywhere else in the world's oceans. In most cases, the mysteries could be explained by storms, mechanical failure, or human error. But Flight 19 remains special, not because it defies physics, but because it reveals how ordinary mistakes can lead to extraordinary myths. Since 1945, countless expeditions have searched for the remains of Flight 19. Sonar sweeps, deep-sea dives, and underwater archaeology missions have found hundreds of wrecks, but none proven to be the missing Avengers. In 1991, 5 TBM Avengers were discovered off the coast of Florida. Excitement surged. Was this Flight 19 at last? But serial numbers soon revealed they belonged to another squadron, lost in a different accident. The true resting place of Flight 19 remains undiscovered. Some believe the planes lie somewhere in the deep waters of the Atlantic Ridge, far beyond the continental shelf. Others suspect they crashed closer to the Bahamas, their remains buried under decades of sand and coral. Until they're found, the mystery endures. Flight 19 was more than a tragic accident. It became a symbol of how fragile human navigation was in the dawn of modern aviation. A symbol of how legends are born, from confusion, fear, and the human need to find meaning in chaos. For the families of the 27 lost men, it was a wound that never healed. Their names are carved into memorials at Fort Lauderdale and Arlington National Cemetery. Each year, the U.S. Navy holds a ceremony honoring their sacrifice, reminding us that beyond the myth was a real human story. Men in their 20s, training for a future they'd never see. In the years after the tragedy, popular culture transformed Flight 19 into legend. Books, television documentaries, and films, most famously Close Encounters of the Third Kind, depicted the lost planes returning mysteriously, untouched by time. It captured the imagination of millions, perhaps because deep down we're drawn to mysteries that refuse to be solved. We want to believe in hidden forces, in worlds beyond our understanding. Flight 19 gave us that, a story where science ends and wonder begins. But beneath the myth lies something more profound. It's the story of men facing the unknown, relying on fragile instruments, trusting one another in the face of fear. As darkness fell that December night, radio operators at Fort Lauderdale listened helplessly. They could hear the pilots talking, their voices steady but tired. "If we just head west, we'll get home," one student pleaded. Taylor replied, "If we're where I think we are, that'll take us into the Gulf." A tragic misunderstanding. A man trying to lead, while the ocean erased all sense of direction. When the last fuel ran dry, there was only silence, the kind of silence that swallows even the echoes of men's voices. The disappearance of Flight 19 changed aviation. Navigation training improved, emergency beacons became standard, communication protocols were rewritten to prevent similar confusion. Every mystery teaches a lesson, even those never fully solved. Flight 19 reminds us that human error, nature, and technology often intersect in unpredictable ways. And when they do, the result can seem almost supernatural. Nearly 80 years later, the sea still guards its secrets. Somewhere beneath the waves of the Atlantic, 5 planes and 14 young men lie in silence, their mission long over, their mystery eternal. Perhaps one day the wrecks will be found, and the truth will finally surface. But until then, Flight 19 will remain a story that straddles the line between fact and legend. A reminder that even in an age of reason, the ocean still whispers mysteries we cannot explain. And that sometimes the greatest mysteries aren't about the supernatural, but about ourselves, our courage, our mistakes, and our endless search for understanding.